another video chapter in the life and times of Donald Trump. And if you are interested in astrological knowledge, you'll find this video interesting. You should find it interesting. However, if you are not interested in that, I can save you a lot of time by simply stating that what I'll say here is similar to what I've said in prior videos. 2020 is a horrifically bad year for Donald Trump, and there are very few moments of daylight. And in this video, I am speaking specifically about May, June, July, because there is a clear pattern emerging here, and it's very revealing. So the key is to focus on the Neptune transit. Neptune is a planet that travels quite slowly, 165-year orbit. You can see that it's covered only this much of the circle his whole life. And so when it makes transits, it's very impactful. It's something you're definitely going to feel. And because in his natal alignment, I have it circled here, Mercury is circled and Eris also circled. It's in a T-square, so it is the most challenging planet in his chart in terms of bringing problems into the foreground. And around the summer solstice, it's stationing such that it's directly square the moon and close enough to square the sun. And so this alignment in his chart with Sun, North Node Uranus, and Moon, South Node over here is being triggered. And this is basically the heart of the chart. It's a very impactful transit. And so now when we focus on the death house as a topic, the 8th house, that is, what we see is these topics emerging. Dirty money, as in money that has been obtained illegally, debt, any kind of debt, taxes, and then disease and infection, and most concerning would be death, outright death. Now, of course, I've said in the past, you can verify it for yourself, people in high positions, a great example is Obama, this happened to him as well, will live out energies in their chart through the collective, through what the country is experiencing. And so Obama, in Obama's case, he had strong health aspects in 2009, 2010, and it manifested through the battle to enact the Affordable Care Act. In Trump's chart, he's got all kinds of health planets in here, and so that's partly the reason why he's experiencing it through the pandemic. But more concerning is that the coronavirus pandemic is most damaging, terrible, and dangerous, and every negative keyword you can imagine, because of death, because people are dying. This is not a joke. It's very serious stuff. And so Trump, at minimum, is dealing with it on that level due to the Neptune being there. But I have to say, I'm completely amazed at the way this guy is behaving. I think he's taking tremendous risks. He won't wear a mask. He's taking drugs that apparently may have pretty serious side effects. And I would say one of the more concerning side effects is that hydroxychloroquine is associated with heart arrhythmias and heart problems. And since he has Leo rising, that goes straight to the heart, which I think makes it incredibly dangerous. But let's take a look at the timing of things, because what's happening here is We've got Neptune in that spot. It's going to station around the summer solstice, but Neptune is moving really slowly in both directions. So it's occupying the 20 to 21 degrees pretty much from May all the way until July on a steady basis. But Venus recently retrograded on the 13th or so in degrees that trigger this because it's 21 plus Gemini, which is in the mutable quadruplicity, so it sets it off. And if you look at the ephemeris, what is happening here is there you have the Venus retrograding, but first focus on the entire red line here. This is Neptune and the challenge that is posing. But now notice that Venus goes retrograde in here, is in those very degrees for a few days, then it backtracks, and connects with those degrees again in late July. So what this is telling you is it's doing a complete circuit, and therefore the entire period is triggering the Neptune. Yes, it'll be most intense at the beginning and at the end, but essentially it's one cycle all by itself. And this is going to create a lot of tension for Trump. Although, as we know from his style, what he does is he simply lies through his teeth, deflects, distracts. Remember that Venus in his chart is in a 12th sign, which in his particular case I associate directly to basically shady dealings and criminality, and it rules the third of communication and messaging. So that's what he does. And now we see with these square blocks the periods when the energy increases as a result of other planets going through, and you see that Mercury crosses through there pretty much as we speak. So probably this is correlating to the latest fire that he started by challenging Michigan's mail ballot strategy, as he put it, even though Texas is doing the same thing. So he actually had to take down a tweet because what he said was so outrageously stupid. And then we noticed that in the June 8th to 12th period, the sun goes through there, so it triggers it again. And on the other side, we've got Mars doing the same thing from Pisces. So this tells you that from the 8th to the 14th, it's really intense again. And then we go to these dotted lines. This is a different alignment because there what is happening is it's challenging the Pentagon as well. You've got challenges to either the T-square or the Pentagon. Right? And I've watched this guy for the last 3 years. He hates it when planets go through there. So you can see that it pretty well covers the whole time. There are moments when there isn't heavy pressure, but because of these two arrows, the pressure is there all the time. So it's constant. It's a constant problem that he can't get out of. And, it's one thing to say, because of these topics, yes, there's a distinct possibility the Supreme Court goes against him, his taxes or some other money thing comes out, which damages him. And of course, that would be hard for him. But I gotta say, though, the most dangerous is these two topics, infection and death, if they actually catch him. But even if they don't, let's say he is going to be Teflon on this level, well, then what's going to happen is that through this whole period here, he's going to be facing down the fact that, he says, one of the outrageous things he says is that the number of infections in the end is a badge of honor, according to him, because if you are doing a lot of testing like we are, as he says, then that's why we get a lot of infections. If we were testing less, there would be less infections. I mean, think of the logic. Think of how crazy that is, how nonsensical it is. Because, let's face it, if we were doing less testing, there would be sick people out there we wouldn't know about. And those people would eventually die, right? But that's his real problem, because he cannot account for the actual fatalities. And that, I think, is going to be the topic, at minimum, if it doesn't catch him during this period. It's going to build up in a giant crescendo of bad energy toward him. And so the next 3 months, or these 3 months rather, are quite bad. And then if you say, well, all right, that's bad, what follows after that? What follows after that is that right in here, this isn't showing now because it's only an ephemeris for Sun, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Neptune. But as we get into August, then what we get is that Saturn is back in Capricorn in the degrees opposing these pentagon planets. And so as the Neptune challenge fades somewhat into the background, and I say somewhat because in a very real sense, once it's made this connection, it does not leave and will continue to hound them the rest of the year and during 21 and 22. But for 2020, by August, we have Saturn back in the game to harass him in the way that it did back in the spring. So the situation is very difficult for Donald Trump. And what can you say? There's no rest for the wicked.